There's Just Something About Kansas City is brought to you in part by the generosity of our friends at the Cocherl Family Foundation. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, once again to another episode of There's Just Something About Kansas City. I'm sitting here next to my two old friends, the Cocherls, Kathy and Pat, in the Jefferson building, just a magnificent building here with the Cocherl Family Foundation. This place is just absolutely beautiful. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your days. I know you're very busy days to sit down and talk to us a little bit about your family, the Cocherl Family Foundation, and everything else that goes on.
Thank you.
Yeah, good deal. Let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning a little bit. I know, Pat, you came from Indiana, okay, originally, and I think you were over at Hickman Mills to begin with. Kathy, where did you grow up?
Really grew up in Leawood.
Okay.
Between Sagamore and Lee Boulevard off 103rd, but was born in New Jersey, but it's been here since I was 5.
Okay, so you moved also from Jersey
yes.
at the age of 5. Yeah,
yes.
It's a great idea to get out of there. Probably getting out of Indiana too wasn't a bad deal.
Yeah, and I think we were about the same age. We were both about 5.
Yeah. Okay, boy, isn't that funny? And then all of a sudden the worlds will collide eventually.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that. Where did you two first meet? And your impressions of him and his impressions of you?
Well, he was working his way through college at the Safeway store at 95th and Mission. And I was one of the older kids of 9, and my mom would send us to the store once we could drive every day. Someone was going to the store, grocery store. So he was, I believe, dairy manager at that time. Even as only like 19 years old, he was managing the dairy. But that's how we met. He bumped into me with his pallet of cheese.
I was just going to ask that question. Yeah.
But yeah.
And so your first impression here's a guy who looks pretty responsible. He's 19 years old and already the head of the dairy department at a local grocery store. Yeah, right. Especially most 19-year-olds have no idea what they're doing or where they're going. Yeah. Your first impressions?
Well, she has a twin, and all the boys that worked there with me were from the Shawnee Mission area, so they knew Karen and Kathy Rowe. And I said, well, I don't know which one's which. If you guys would help me out, I know which one I would like to ask on a date. And so when Kathy came in, one of my buddies, Dan Hickman, came over and said, that's Kathy. And I go, that's... So I ran back in the dairy and put some cheese on a little cart and went out and bumped into her and then risked life and said, would it be okay if I give you a call sometime and maybe we could go out? Yeah. And she said yes and gave me her phone number, and that was that.
So what were you two doing at the time? Both in college at that time?
I was in high school.
Oh, you were still in high school? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, robbing the cradle a little bit.
Yeah.
Huh?
Just by 9 years.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then eventually you did go to school after that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just in high school.
Right.
And then married after high school, but he was in college.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then what were you doing at that time besides being a dairy guy at the?
I went to school, played baseball in Van Johnson League.
Right.
And took her out to her first baseball game so she could see me, and trying to impress her, and I hardly ever hit home runs. And I hit a home run to win a game.
Okay.
Walk-off, which they didn't call back then, and then hit a home run in my first at-bat in the second game, and that was quite an accomplishment for me. I didn't hit a lot of home runs in college, so she was unimpressed.
Yeah. So once you two got married, what was the the projection at that time as far as jobs and where you're going to live and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, just moved into a 1-bedroom apartment. Had 2 kids right away, pretty close together, and he worked very, very hard to support us because we didn't start out with anything.
Right. Exactly.
Neither of our parents were helping us. That wasn't what anyone did back then. You were on your own, and he would work 2 and 3 jobs, really.
So
we just
So the work ethic was always there for you. Where'd you learn that work ethic? I'm sure
My father.
Right.
Yes.
Both your parents really.
Both of my parents were very strict, German and Irish. You played by the rules. You came home from school, you took your school clothes off, you put your play clothes on. Very strict. And what it was really teaching was structure. And I came out of college with a good structure. I had a good structure and a wife that chose not to finish college, but to be a wife and a mother. And so I decided I better have a couple side hustles to make sure I could cover these babies we're having in a hurry.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the two of you too, what was your projection then as far as jobs concerned? I know we're going to get to the Panasonic thing and the circuit boards and all that, but as you started to move towards that, what was your ambition? Where were you going at that time?
I didn't know. And as you got close to the end of college, it became, what way do I want to go? Well, it just so happened that a guy that lived up the street from Kathy was a general manager at BMA. And he offered me a job. And Kathy's dad, who was a senior vice president of IBM running the Kansas City agency, also thought that I would be a good candidate for IBM. I took the job at BMA, and so my first 10 years out of school were working for an insurance company. And a wonderful mentor, a wonderful man. Then I'd had enough of that and decided that I wanted to try something entrepreneurial. I was an old college jock and I loved playing racquetball, which was very popular at the time. And I met up with a guy named Reg Lyerla, whose father owned Dale's Athletic Club.
I remember Dale's, yes, absolutely.
So I negotiated a buy-in to part of their club, left corporate, and spent the next 6 or 7 years building, running, and developing athletic clubs.
So, Kathy, did you have any trepidation? He's leaving corporate, which is it's sort of a check every week or every 2 weeks, or whatever, assured. But he's deciding to branch out on his own and do
I
something
always had
totally
a
different.
lot of confidence in him. I just knew he would make a go of whatever he did. He was just smart and such a hard worker, and I had no trepidation at all.
Yeah.
Really.
And you didn't, obviously, because you decided to take the leap.
I was ready to go, and it was one of the hardest things I ever did because the man that hired me, mentored me, was a very close mentor to me. And when I left him, I don't think he was very happy about it.
That was probably the hardest thing, was leaving Jack and Maxine.
Yeah, okay.
They were
sure.
great people, and we stayed close with them throughout their lives.
And I know you too, so I know how you feel about people and relationships. It's just always been something you two have nurtured and developed through all the successes that you've had to be able to put this incredible foundation together, which we'll talk about too as we go. But there was, to me, I would think you're having babies and he's jumping from one profession to another. Sometimes that's a scary situation, but you have to have somebody supportive in order to be able to make that leap. You have to ask somebody, can I do this? And sure, go ahead. I believe in you, and just go in that little bit of confidence.
Yeah, even when you were at the athletic clubs, he would still do football in the fall, referee football games, local little league stuff, and baseball games.
Picking up that $4 or $5 a game, right? I remember those days.
Picking up money to pay for Christmas, so we wouldn't have to charge things. So.
Sure.
Yeah, we would take all the extra money I made and put it in a pot, and then at Christmas time, however many kids we had, we divided it into that many segments.
Right.
And we went out and paid all cash.
Wow.
Never used a credit card for Christmas.
So let's talk about the circuit boards, repairing circuit boards through that time. And we met right around that time, I think, because both of our boys, Ryan and my son Garrett, played football together at Blue Valley High School. So that's when I met both of you at that time when they were playing football together. So, but that's also about the time that you started really, doing something different. You had one more side job fixing circuit boards of all things. You just go. In that time, it was such a complicated thing to do. You'd send a circuit board into somebody. Oh yeah, we'll have back for you in 6 weeks. Well, companies don't want to hear that, and you solved that problem.
I was fortunate. I had my fill of adding athletic clubs on and decided I'm going to get rid of all of them. I'm 35 years old, and I'm going to start my own company and build my own company. I'm having drinks with a guy after golf, and he was a salesman for Canon
Copiers. Yeah, copiers, right.
And I was just curious, and I'm thinking, it's 1985, or is that 1985? Yeah.
Yes, it was
1985. And technology is really coming of age. Maybe I need to just stick my nose in there. So Kathy has two brother-in-laws that are both engineers. So I start talking to them a little bit. Then I run into this guy that sells for Canon. And I said, I'm curious. My dad was a TV repairman. So I used to sit at his desk and help him solder things.
Right, and you were probably putting in the old tubes, remember the old
tubes
TVs
only
that weighed 400 pounds for this tiny TV with the tubes in the back, right?
Yeah, but it was good. It was a good lesson I learned from Dad.
Yeah.
And so I got this idea, and I asked the guy, and I go, well, what do you do when those things break? And he goes, oh, it's pain. You got to call Japan and buy a new one. And I looked at him and I said, well, why don't you just fix them? My dad used to fix TV tubes, and so therein lied the idea.
Yeah, right.
So I started studying that, brought my two brother-in-laws on board and said, can you teach me, or I don't know what schematic even means, much less draw one. Right. And I'll be darned, within about 6 months I had a company.
Yeah, so and you...
With a partner for a little bit.
With a partner for the first 3 years.
Okay. So you had the idea from the circuit boards breaking, but you didn't have any idea how to repair one.
Nope.
But you knew people who did know, and this is about the relationships, and I know they were family, but it's still about the relationship type situation and being able to delegate the authority, say, I have no idea what a schematic does, but you guys can fix these, can't you? And then you have to tell them, well, it takes about 6 weeks to get something from Japan, you got to fix them in 48 hours. Or did that sort of just morph, and then all of a sudden you got really good at this, and we're able to turn this over really quickly.
Yes. And I reached out to Panasonic, told them that I would like to work with them.
Well, why did you reach out to Panasonic?
I looked at Canon, I looked at Dell, I looked at Panasonic. Panasonic was at that time the biggest manufacturer in the world of electronics. They owned the market by billions. So I figured that was my best shot. So I go to New York, to their offices, and they pretty much kicked my ass out of the building. Said, we don't have any use for this, we do our own stuff. And I go, well, the word on the street is you guys are terrible at it. Well, we might be, but we do our own stuff. So I started working through the network of the salespeople and getting them to send me all their old circuitry. Mm-hmm. From that, we created an inventory. And then we just started fixing them without telling Panasonic. Panasonic reached out and goes, what the heck you doing? And I go, we're fixing these things. It's the United States. We have a right to do this.
Yeah, we can do this.
We can do this. That evolved over a period of about 3 months into negotiations. Within 3 months, we had a handshake, and I worked with them for the next 35 years.
Yeah, okay. So that's where you're starting now to build some wealth, okay? And you're in a position, you have 5 children, basically at this point, and everything's just everything was going well, right? I mean, at that point, this is great. I'm gonna end up working for Panasonic forever, right?
Yes, and he built relationships there, still has relationships there. People that are really very good friends of his now, even though he's retired, they're retired, they've moved on. It was something he did very well.
Yes, yeah, he did. Absolutely.
He would always tell him, I have no idea how to fix the circuit boards. Don't even ask me. He's about building relationships and
his
running the
man.
business.
It's ideas too.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. How much of an impact did you have on Panasonic building their brand new building here in this area, in DeSoto?
Well, I was on both sides of the coin. I had some meetings with the governor's office. I had some meetings with Panasonic's structure in Japan. And I did very little to put it together. other than to say, I know Panasonic, they're an honorable company. So from a Kansas standpoint, I think it's good. And I know Kansas, will do a good job for them. So yeah, I helped support it. I don't think I was the linchpin, but I was trusted by both sides of the negotiation.
Yeah, and what an incredible boon for our economy in this area. One more with Panasonic building that. They're going to employ at least 1,000 people, I believe, at one time, let alone all the offshoots, 4,000 people. Okay, 4,000. Wow, that's incredible.
It was in the paper this morning.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. There you go.
They're ultimately going to put 7,000, but they're starting with 500. When they open the building next spring, they'll go to 4,000.
Yeah, now that whole corridor again, that K10 corridor is going to be.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're going to have to widen that to 3 lanes each way somehow or whatever, which is important. Okay. So you have worked hard. You had your work ethic. You built this wealth. I'll just put it that way. And the first thing I think he said, and I think one of the things I read about, he said, if I ever get successful, I'm going to give all my money away. And so here you are, giving all your money away.
We actually said that, or you said that to me probably, 5 years after we were married. If we ever made over $20,000 a year, we're giving the rest to charity. Being naive, and that was a lot of money for us back then.
It's a beautiful thought, too. It's a great thought, but you're thinking, 20,000, I think we're going to have to keep a lot of that.
But whatever's going on up here with him eventually happens, goes to fruition for him.
Yeah. And so for you, now you're there, you're at that point, and you're a man of your word, and that's what you did. You just started following through. Tell me how difficult it is to set up a family foundation. What is involved for someone that has to go. And I mean, you crept up the ladder, you did really well, and then all of a sudden, okay, I think we're gonna go help other people. And in your case, you're helping kids, which they are the base of our pyramid. They're the most important people on the base of our pyramid. So what was your, how tough is it to set this up? And then how did you figure out what segment of the population you wanted to help?
Well, the idea had been percolating between both of us that we're at a point where we can do this, and we should do it. God gave it to us, we should give it back. And so we went to the lawyers and found out how to get a 501c3. Went through all that arduous waiting and patience. Brought a couple advisors on board to give us a little bit of ballast, for the ship to shore. And then we made a couple decisions. One was, we will never ask anybody for money. We will use our own money only. So that was important to me, that we didn't do fundraisers and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, so your foundation is basically you. You are the foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we decided to put an amount of money into that foundation and follow the rules of giving away at least 5% of it a year. Well, it didn't work. It worked great. We entered into a 20-year period of where stocks were growing. We initially put $1 million in, and then 2 years later moved that up to $10 million. Now it's far past that, and when Kathy and I had second to die, all the rest goes in.
Right.
So eventually that will be a very handsome foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kathy, bringing all the kids are involved for all practical purposes, which is wonderful, because you always have that fight. But I don't want to do what Dad does. I don't want to do this. But they have all acquiesced, and they are all part of this. This is a real family foundation.
Yes, it is. I would say in the very beginning, they were like, and probably myself included, were like a deer in headlights.
Yes.
Like,
what is this?
What? And just understanding it all. And we realized we had to bring them up to speed about the finances, all of it. But it took a lot of time to get them to that. They were all in different stages of their lives, and finding the time to get them all together and having them show the interest eventually. That took a little bit of time.
Yeah.
About 10 years.
Yeah, did you have to,
Yeah.
who was the last one that came kicking and screaming
they
into the
were-
Family Foundation?
They all came kicking and screaming. They all knew they better be at the meetings.
Yeah, right. Oh, sure.
But they all now really get it and understand, and it was the best thing we did, is bringing them on board.
Right. So do they all have a different role? And if you don't mind, if you go through each one and
there's positions in the foundation that they hold, and they'll switch them up so that each person is president. Well, that's the LLC mainly,
But also the foundation.
but also the foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So they
take
rotate,
turns.
treasurer,
So
secretary.
they all know the jobs.
Right.
Yeah, they all know every job.
They have
right?
some of the kids have some that they're just, I would rather do this the whole time,
Yeah,
But
because they feel
this is
they
what
probably
I'm
know
comfortable
it.
with.
Yeah.
But they all do we're really proud of them.
Oh, well,
How far
I'll bet
how
you
far
are.
they've come.
Absolutely. That's Sean, Ryan, Kristen, Jennifer, and Patrick the third.
Yes.
Okay, they're all involved. So and now there's grandchildren involved, and I'm sure this legacy will continue on through the Cocherl family, because it is a Cocherl Family Foundation. So it'll just continue on through the family. And I think those young, I'm sure some of those young grandkids are going to be involved as well, especially if Grandpa has anything to do with it.
Oh, yeah, Grandpat, that's what they call him, Grandpat.
Grandpat.
He
I
talks
like
to
that.
the older ones and the middle ones now too about it. So
Yeah, and I'm sure they all have a sense of giving because they see what has happened in their family. So talk about, it is a family foundation. Now all of a sudden, okay, I have this and I've been incredibly blessed. And okay, who are we going to give this to? Okay, and how did you come up with your mission statement and where this money was going to go and who you were going to help?
Well, I can tell you an embarrassing story. I was president of the Blue Valley School Board for a few years. I was on the board for 8 years, and proud that I did it. And we came to a point on about my 6th year where inclusion was becoming an issue of, do we mainstream all of the kids or do we separate them, which has been the
Right.
history.
If you have some of the kids on the spectrum, do we separate them out and
Right.
let them go to school by themselves?
And my position as the board president was no. I want to keep it the way it is. I think that is the best way to do it. I'm probably 40 at the time. Well, the board outvoted me. Therefore, I had to become the guy that executed collating all of this together. Not 2 weeks into the school district, little Patrick wants to invite a little friend over. And so Kathy agrees and we agree. And so the mother brings the little boy over and she's in a van. And she gets out of the van and goes to the other side. And the boy that gets out of the van is challenged physically and mentally. And I watched my 5-year-old interact with that 5-year-old and realized I was maybe the dumbest man on the face of the earth. I didn't realize that to them, they were just two kids. And one didn't see one's deficiencies nor the other. And it was a great life lesson. I immediately went to every school in the district, apologized to every principal, and dove in head first on making that work. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah, as you
It
find out,
does.
it's hard because I know sometimes you're thinking, well, are they going to slow down the progress of somebody else, or can they learn better on their own with a teacher, just one teacher hovering over that one child and trying to help them? But being mainstream with other kids, like your son Patrick, who had a heart, of course, of gold. I'm sure the other child probably was getting picked on in school sometimes or whatever, being made fun of, but be able to bring him home. And I think that is a lesson for all of us to understand it. Yeah.
a great
So
lesson.
that was the impetus for now what you wanted to do with the Cocherl Family Foundation.
So that is still probably 80% of our focus. Children with needs. We have sent hundreds of challenged kids to college. And I think I may be wrong here, but I think about 68% is the graduation rate in college for the mainstream.
Mainstream.
So is it with us.
Wow.
We graduated about 68% of all the kids we sent through.
And that really helps the guidance counselors and the schools and then the colleges to understand if they're talking to us from Blue Valley School District about these kids who they have that they believe can go to college, you know, in mainstream with the other kids and learn and graduate and then become productive citizens. What are we doing? I mean, of course we're going to let these people in, right? That's what this is all about.
Yeah, it was really, really a blessing.
Well, and a lot of these parents too, with anyone with a child that's challenged or special needs, they've had to put out a lot of extra money. And so we thought that's helpful to them.
Right.
To help them get their kids to further their education and pay for some of it.
So how young are they when you figure out that they need help, or do they come to you, or how does this work exactly?
The counselors at school really probably earmark kids that are really good candidates.
They know you're here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So they present, and they have to write an essay and fill out a questionnaire and write like 3 essays. But fill out a questionnaire, and their essays are always very, very heartwarming.
Heartbreaking.
And hard to like say, you know, not this one. It's generally we're doing 90 to 100% of them, but
but we
pivoted a little bit.
And then we have pivoted as the district has become a little bit more woke. The counselors seem to bring more people in than they probably should.
Right.
So we've kind of had to tighten that button down a little bit, but that's just as heck, we've been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it worked really, really well. It was a good thing for our school district. It was a good thing for our community. The colleges got it. They knew what they were getting. And gosh, we sent them all over the country. They went, we sent them anywhere they wanted to go, 4-year ride.
Wow.
And some of them went to JUCO.
Oh,
a
sure.
lot of them.
A lot of them.
And or welding school, or
well, I think that we've talked
vocational.
about this before. I think that's so important that 4-year college isn't for everybody.
Right.
No matter who the child is,
Exactly.
okay, no matter where they are. And it's just that those schools, I think, eventually are just they have to end up overtaking the main colleges for people who would be mainstream, become a plumber, electrician, HVAC person, somebody of that nature. We're going to need them forever.
Exactly.
And I think that, that is so important. So.
And we've sent a lot. We've sent them to engineering school for being an engineer on a train. We've sent them to plumbing school. We've sent them to carpentry. Wherever they want to go.
Wow. And so when you say no to somebody, and I know that that's very difficult, what is the impetus there? What is the criteria? Where is the break off point?
Number.
Okay.
There are X that we'll give a year.
Okay.
And we tried to adhere to that, because when you start and you're given 40 a year, well, now that next year that means you've got 80 students, and then you've got 120. By the time you're full up, we got 160 kids. And one of their requirements is that they must write an essay at the end of the year, not about grades. What'd you do at school? What things did you sign up for? What activities were you involved in? We saw their grades, and they had to keep a 2.0, or they lost their scholarship.
Sure.
Just like the regular students. And the essays that we got, they're all here. All of them are here in this building. Every essay that's been written, and it's powerful stuff. Wow. How they went to help other people, and how it made them feel comfortable to connect with people of the same situations. Some of the greatest letters ever. And then they graduate, and we get invited to their graduations, and it's selfishly more fulfilling for us than I think it is for them.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Kathy, the legacy that you're leaving, and I know you don't pat yourselves on the back, it's just the legacy you're leaving is just incredible with all these kids. And then they become parents, and then those kids become parents, and then it's an ongoing thing for all these years. That just the feedback and the incredible legacy you're leaving just must make you feel pretty good.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's fun to kind of even run into some of these kids. We have one girl that every year puts a decorated pumpkin on our front porch, and she's been graduated for probably 5 or 6 years. I mean, she's.
But every year she still does.
She still does that. Yeah. So.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question now. Okay, where did his obsession, come with Thomas Jefferson?
From a history teacher in middle school, I believe, is where it started for him.
And did you think it would morph into
No, not this,
the Jefferson
no.
building?
In fact, I think
Going to Monticello itself to
no.
check it out?
I think I kind of remember the conversation like, well, just a small building. We don't need anything big, remember? And
How about if we build a Lego replica?
Yeah,
Would that be okay?
And he's like, oh yeah, it won't be big and out. And like, so here we are. But that's him. I call him kind of sometimes behind your back, Mr. Fanfare.
Yeah, right. Or Mr. Obsessed, one or the other.
Yeah, that too.
Because we will eventually get to Christmas here as well.
Oh no.
But
yeah.
but the Jefferson thing for you, I mean, the greatest way you describe him is that guy's a dude, and I know the people you feel that way about, and he was a dude.
He was a dude.
Yeah.
That teacher made me fall in love with American history, and he was an advocate of Washington and Jefferson and Franklin, all the founders. But it seemed like every time I listened, I kept hearing Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson. So I started reading books and I started learning about him, and it just kind of grew. And so I decided one day, you know what? I've been blessed. We have a foundation now. I'd like to have a wonderful home for that foundation because it will last for a long time. Once we're gone, everything goes to the foundation. So it'll just be more money to be given away. And I wanted a stately place to do it, and I could think of nothing better than that. And I did get kind of out of line. By about
Kinda, yeah.
by an extra probably 25,000 square feet, but this could have been a one-story log cabin and it would have been fine. But I do put a little blame on her. All this furniture is her.
Okay, well, that's very little
He's
compared.
going to put me in charge of something.
Absolutely.
That was not gonna
Hey,
be...
if you're going to do this, I'm involved. Okay, pal. I'm not going to have you have folding chairs inside that building. Yeah. So, and I know you adhere to the Jefferson's 10 rules, which are on the stairway coming up out of the second floor here, or the first floor here. And if you read them, I'm not going to bore them all, although I don't think they're very boring. Never put off until tomorrow, which you can do today. Never trouble another for what you can do yourself. Never spend your money before you've earned it, which is something you learned at a very, very young age. Never buy what you don't want because it is cheap. Okay, I'm guilty of that every once in a while. Pride costs more than hunger, thirst, and cold. We seldom repent of having eaten too little. Nothing is troublesome that we do willingly. How much pain the evils have cost us that have never happened. Okay, we worry about things that just never come to fruition, which is, you talk about the guy being a dude, the guy was a dude. Take things always by the smooth handle. And last, when angry, count to 10 before you speak. When angry, count to 10 before you speak. If you're very angry, count to 100. So I think that is extremely important. They're all right here on the steps on the way up, and you live that. You live those 10 rules, don't you?
Yep,
Yeah,
we
we
tried
try.
to.
Yeah,
We try.
yeah.
Tried to, and number 10 was the hardest for me. So I had an Irish temper.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it was very hard for me to rein that temper in. And every time when I saw those when I first saw those 10 rules, I bought it in a small frame.
Right.
And I kept looking at the last one thinking, not going to get to that one.
It's like the 10 Commandments. I don't think I'm going to get them all.
But it really did help me be more temperate.
Yes, right. Which is hard when you're in business. I mean, I don't
Yes.
care what kind of business you're in. It's tough not to have those quote fly off the handle type situations. And then how much did your health scare change the way you approach life? And Kathy, what his difference?
Well, heart attacks hurt. Cardiac arrest doesn't. There's no pain. I had how many cardiac arrests?
Maybe 10 or 11.
10 or 11 over a period of 9 hours.
Yeah.
I died quite a few times.
Wow.
Gone.
Uh-huh.
And the next morning to wake up and still be here caused an effect. And the effect was, why? Why am I here? And it probably took me about 3 months to confirm what I believe was wanted from me,
Right.
because he still had time left here for me.
Mm-hmm.
And all that did was razor sharpen my feelings about the foundation and the good that I could do, but more importantly, to teach my family to carry that on.
Right.
So that became my absolute focus. Getting the kids totally trained, get them completely under wraps that this is something that they're going to do if they want to be a part of their inheritance. They're going to earn it. And I couldn't be happier with how that's went.
Yeah.
They are in.
So,
They get it.
like they say, it's not a little bit of a blessing in disguise, although I know for you probably going through that period was extremely difficult for you because is your husband the love of your life? And,
And he actually was in the middle of building this building. So
So did you whisper in his ear any time, you can't go now. Right. This is your fault.
I mean, he was like kind of towards the finish line. And we had a big grand opening in May, which he was part of. It was amazing how he bounced back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously incredible, because there was still so much work to do here and all the decisions and the meetings. And his stamina that year was amazing.
Yeah.
Even later that year, you were sick again, but not with your heart, but something else. And it was just incredible. He's just the hardest working man I know.
Yeah, right. And that probably led basically to the heart attacks for all practical purposes, for the cardiac arrest for all practical purposes. Because
it was an amazing year for him.
Yeah, it was. And it was a blessed year. From those failings or fears or potential loss of life to I'm still here. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to complain about anything. I'm just going to figure out what he wants. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is a very deeply religious woman, so right. I'm sure I believe that I'm here by divine intervention and her connection to the
right, exactly,
the top guy.
Right. And how tough was it on the kids?
Yeah, they were all very concerned. But like I said, he bounced back so quickly. It was kind of amazing. Even in the hospital, the kids were all there, and he'd come back from like a cardiac arrest. We were all right there, and he'd be winking at the nurses, and I'm still here. Did I go somewhere? I mean, it was, yeah. But they all watch out for him.
They do. And, you're always asked the question, what did you see? And I never saw anything. I didn't see a light. I didn't see Christ or God. What I felt, though, was just peace. And then I would come back, and I would wink at, and they weren't there in the beginning. Kathy and our daughters were down at the plaza, and I was home alone when it happened, and it all turned out good.
Yeah.
He did the right thing. Calling 911.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Well, thank God he had enough faculties, after the arrest to call 911. That'd be the thing. You're home alone. The phone may be just right there, but you can't get to it. You know what I mean? So being able to have that capability that's a lifesaver.
Yeah, well, you know, I was lucky in this. When I ran all the athletic clubs, I had all of my staff trained for, you know, CPR and the other things. So I kind of knew the 5 symptoms of a heart attack. And when it first happened, I had flown home that day from Florida and literally said hi to my wife, and then they went down to the plaza I always held a Super Bowl party, and I flew home the Friday night before the Super Bowl. My Christmas gift to them was I always sent them down to the plaza for a few days. So I'm by myself, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, I think I've got heartburn or something. I haven't even eaten today. I didn't eat, I flew. Long story short, all of a sudden I've got 2 or 3 of the symptoms. I call 911, and I literally died in the driveway when the firemen were coming down.
So you were already outside at the time.
She did a great job. I never met her, but she did a great job of walking me through.
Wow.
And I got outside and I could hear the sirens. You know, fortunately Leewood's fire department's 3 minutes from our house. And according to Captain Mike, who was the one that saved me, said if it would have been 30 more seconds, we wouldn't have saved you.
Yeah.
I mean, I was right there.
It's how close we can be.
I was being hung on by the wire from out there.
Well, you're carrying on, you know, God's job at the moment, you know, to helping. And so the other obsession, besides Jefferson, okay, is Christmas. Where did the obsession for Christmas? Now, folks, you don't know this. You know, the plaza lights turn on Thanksgiving night, and about the middle of January, they turn them off. Well, inside this building, the Jefferson building, if you see a monitor anywhere, like the one behind us, it will be playing It's a Wonderful Life on, you know, it just goes. It just goes from beginning to end, and it just goes and goes and goes. And that is your, why, you know, you could have done a Christmas Carol or another Christmas type movie. Number one, where did the obsession come from? And number two, why It's a Wonderful Life?
Well, that's my favorite movie. I think you can be 15 or 75 and you can watch that movie and learn something every time you watch it. It is nothing but goodness and fairness and kindness and care for your fellow man. Every time I watch that, I either affirm or learn something, just like the little sign when he's Jimmy Stewart's taking pills.
Yes.
And he gets the wrong pills and he knows it. And he looks up and sees a sign, and then the sign says, "Ask Dad." Yeah. He knows.
Right.
There are 100 of those in that movie. So it became my favorite movie, and it was required watching. Our whole family watched it every Christmas Eve. And I love that movie. So I play it on a wrap. I follow the plaza schedule. Mm-hmm. We turn our lights on Thanksgiving, and we turn them off on April 15th. January 15th.
Yeah.
The same as the plaza. And if you've not seen the pictures in here, I love Christmas. We're a poor family. We didn't get we got a present. And it was usually socks. Or something like that. There wasn't much going around. But I loved Christmas. There was something just about Christmas that I fell in love with, and I've never fell out of love with it.
Yeah.
So, and thank God I've got people to help, because
you don't want to decorate yourself, take it all up and put it back down again?
We call him, the kids and I, we call him Clark at Christmas time. Because
I'm like Clark Griswold.
Yeah, Clark.
Very much.
Absolutely, yeah. More. No, we need a few more over there, yeah. But and that is wonderful. I don't know if I should tell my story about Christmas or not. I don't know if I should.
Oh, you should.
But I hate Christmas.
Oh.
I hate to tell you this. Okay, I did not have good Christmases. Not because we couldn't. I mean, my mom and dad, everybody had presents. Everything was good. Yeah, it wasn't that. I always got my brother's hand-me-downs. I'm 5.5 years younger than my brother, and I swear to God, they saved his stuff for 5.5 years, thinking they might have another one, and I ended up with all of his clothes. Oh yeah, I wore that when I was 2. He used to get on me all the time. Then one Christmas, which really chapped me, was the Christmas he got a brand new bike. a brand new Schwinn bike. He was a paper boy, so it was important he had a bike, and they put the basket in front so he could put his papers in. And I got his beat up, no fenders, no chain guard, no nothing on that bike.
Oh, boy.
It was just the old bike. The one that when you'd ride it in the rain, you'd spit the water up on your back. Yeah, that one. So Christmas and I have had a battle, but I'm starting to come around to Mr. C's ways. And when you do see It's a Wonderful Life or whatever, and of course you have the bank building in Martin City. You bought, and it is the Bailey Savings and Loan, which was exactly the same savings and loan as it was in It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
And then what do you do in that building? What is that building?
Well, I bought it because I wanted its warehouse, but it was also a cute building. It's got a 17,000 foot warehouse, and we needed more.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a
That's a big
warehouse.
building.
Yeah, okay.
But the bank itself was built in 1904, and I love history, obviously, and so it was torn up pretty bad, and I renovated it to exactly what it looked like in 1904. And then we put a little imaging shop in there. So people that, make films or make pictures and want to get them put in. So it's just a place for a couple of our people to work, just something for them to do. And in fact, I think right now, Patrick and Ryan are negotiating with a lady who's going to put an antiques store in there. So we're going to rent it out to her for a few years and let her have a go out of it. And I bet that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so too, because Martin City is, really, they have venues there now, and they have the restaurants, and they're starting to pick up their own vibe, as the kids all say, whatever that means exactly. But what are the biggest challenges for you move? I know the kids are going to be involved, but what are the biggest challenges as you move forward now?
Oh, gosh.
Or are you blessed enough that it's just, it really isn't a great spot?
The foundation?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. It's in a really, really good spot. It's just staying on top of the giving, it's easy, and it's just so much fun to give. So sometimes I procrastinate a bit. I keep thinking, this is on my heart. I want to give to this, give to that. And the kids are now bringing us lots of charities. All 5 of them are bringing things that mean something to them. So that's been fun to see.
Yeah, right. And like a lesson you would try to pass on to somebody who's trying to follow in your footsteps, someone that wants to develop their own family foundation. What advice would you give them?
You do it for one reason. You want to give back. And each foundation, I think, is similar yet very different in their particular target. It might be abused women, it might be children with disabilities, it might be any number of things. For our family, what I think's been the most fun is you have to give away X. Well, we have no problem giving away X.
Right.
And we're good with that. But also, we have rules and we vote. And sometimes you get voted down. So they have now gotten to the point where mom and dad are just 2 people. They're not mom and dad anymore. And they voted us down a couple times that they didn't think it was a good charity to give to.
Right.
So I think what you do is you morph or you grow as you learn. So we decided that sometimes there's something that maybe I was kind of really pretty passionate about and it got shut down. So I created everybody gets a X amount of dollars a year to do whatever they want.
Yeah, sure.
Well, and we don't give to huge charities.
Yeah,
like
people who are already accumulating a lot of money.
We don't,
Cancer, heart.
United Way, we don't give to the big
exactly.
that are well funded. We find the smaller charities that don't have a lot of admin, that a lot of your dollars goes to help what they're there for. So that's what we tend, and we really look into that before we make a decision.
Yeah. Well, I have to thank you because you are 2 of the first people that believed in us. So that's not why we're here. You would have been on this podcast no matter if you got shot down for us or whatever.
Well, you're welcome.
You are welcome.
And I think what you're doing is worthy. It's worthy to look at those podcasts and for the people to see what Kansas City is really like
Yeah.
is it's powerful.
Right.
And I'm glad you did it, and we're in to support you, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of other people join in your support now. And I think you just keep doing it. There's a lot of good people in this city because there are a lot of good things about this city.
Right. Right. And we are discovering that as we go as well. You know, people like yourselves, but you know, there are tons of people in this community that have made it what it is, and in the last probably, we go back to maybe 2015, a little bit before, whatever, and the Royals started to get better. And I know this is sports related, but we've gotten this look, the eyeballs in from the rest of the world, and then Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey haven't hurt any. They haven't hurt this area. And I just think, you know, when you get a company like Panasonic come along and go, yeah, we're going to build it in DeSoto, Kansas, I go, yeah, build it where? Where's DeSoto, Kansas?
Well, I tell you, when he entertained a lot with Panasonic, the salesmen, the managers, they would all come here, and he would entertain them and bring them around. We'd go to the plaza, all sorts of places. They were beyond impressed.
Yeah.
They had no idea that Kansas City had all this to offer.
Yeah.
The schools, neighborhoods, the venues, weren't they? They were like floored.
Yes, very much so. And when you're here and you have it all, you don't sometimes
Can't see the
realize.
forest for the trees.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you turn around and you look and you see friends that you haven't seen for 10 years, and it's like you've not missed a beat.
Yeah.
And people, we've lived in the same house for 44 years. You know, we built our home here when it was a farm. It was just a farmyard.
Right.
And now look at Leawood, and this is a good place to raise a family.
It is.
Sadly one, but only one murder in the history of our city in 75 years.
Yep.
It's a good, safe place to live.
Yeah.
And the people are not snooty. Even though we rank in the top 10 in wealth in the country and cities, people are tremendously giving here of their time, their talent.
I think that's this city.
The
It's
city,
very much like that.
the
Yeah,
metro.
they're very giving. They're very blue collar, down to earth. I know there's white collar, obviously, but very blue collar, down to earth. Help your neighbor. You know, reach a hand out, shake a hand, put a arm around somebody's shoulders, and just say, hey, you know, it's gonna get better. So I think that's really important. That's what we're doing with the podcast. And Sarah's idea was terrific, you know, because when she heard that, you know, Bobby Bell first say it, you know, Bobby, you could basically live anywhere. Why do you live here? He said, no, just something about Kansas City. And Bobby didn't have the easiest time in the world
right.
when he first got here. There was a lot of, you know, racism then, and they killed his dog, for God's sake. And it's just, you know, it's just that kind of thing just sort of grips you. And everybody you talk to, George Brett, Tom Watson, Cliff Illigan, they can live anywhere in the world, okay, but they choose to call this home. And I think that's why
Says
it's
a
just
lot.
something about Kansas City.
Exactly.
Okay.
Says a lot.
Thank you so much for your time,
thank
and
you.
thanks so much for what the Cocherl Family Foundation does for, you know, kids here in the area and others as well, and us as well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
God
Thank
bless.
you.
Okay.
bless.
Take
bless
care
you
of your
too.
heart. Okay, pal.
You know where I was today?
Huh?
Heart doctor.
At the doctor.
You know what he said? Here's exactly what he said. Get out. Nothing changes. He goes, you're a miracle. I am a miracle. You know, it was a miracle that I lived.
Yeah.
And he went through all the charts, and I'm normal. All of my counts are normal.
Well, yeah. Okay, he's normal.
From a doctor's
All right, I
perspective.
understand. But thanks again for your time and how busy
You're
you both
welcome.
are with everything. And God bless you, folks. They are the reason why there's just something about Kansas City. Today's episode is brought to you in part by the generosity of our friends at the Cocherl Family Foundation. Thank you.